Got the inside. Does Leskola send it deep? Yes, he does. He knows he's going to have to force Rolla a little bit wide, but he leaves him space. Rolla gets the inside, coming down to the Sachs curve, but he's timid on the brakes, and almost a Vettel situation there with Yuko Leskola taking it deep, but somehow he holds on, and they carry on this side-by-side battle. Now into the south curve, and around, still on the inside. Yuko Leskola will not give way.
Here they come on to the front straightaway towards Nordkurv. Someone's going to have to give here. You can't go through this thing too wide, and Yuko finally gives up the ghost and lets Billy go through. But Billy takes it a little bit too deep. Yusko's got another opportunity towards the entrance of the Parabolica.
This battle will not quit. Down to the Parabolica entry. He's got the inside one more time. Will the throttle pedal make the difference here coming off the corner? It does seem to for Vili Rolla. He briefly has a nose ahead, but now momentum goes back to Yuko Leskola. It's the long way around the Parabolica, but it'll be the inside coming down into the Spitzkara. This has been an incredible battle. They've now practically gone a full lap side by side here. Down into the corner and smoking the tires once again. Leskola somehow manages to make that shallow line work. Yep, this is down into turn 2. Really wants to cut into that apex, but there is that gray and blue car there. It carries on as it swings back through turn 3. Muirhead gets a little bit of an edge. Excuse me, Boucher does. But now, as they come to the left-hander, this is not the place he wants to be. He lifts a little bit early. He still carries the speed through, goes a little wide. Is that one going to count, or is he going to be given a slowdown? It counts. And Boucher is going to move into 10th.
We've got a little bit of a pass going on here. Mies trying to make the move down to the inside here as they go into Cunningham. Side by side with Felipe Loyola. And that is going to be Mies with the nose ahead. Tries to give a little bit of an elbows out move, but now the track is going to favor back to Felipe Loyola. Under heavy braking. Who's it going to be?
We got a battle farther up ahead, and this is Karthik Pai side by side Lino Frisha. Lino's going to be able to get ahead of him. He's going to go for another one. He's not just taking one, but he's too hot in the corner, and that goes into the side of the Texan. And in the midst of it all, how about Ove Trangrade getting 3 spots in a single corner?
But handling it well, did exactly the right thing, came off the throttle, just kept the wheel as straight as he could, ease the car back up on as he comes past the lap traffic here. Scarali, is that Scarali who went off up there? Is he going to get up? It looks like he's going to catch Scarali. Scarali's getting caught up with this lap traffic as Chiquita tries to get around him going through. Oh, nice pass. Mr. Sneaky pulls it off again.
This is what he's been waiting for. Now he definitely has enough speed, but oh, look, he's not even as close as he is. He's not able to use that toe to try and attack, so he's going to go around the outside, trying to break deeper, cutting back underneath, but that's going to give the inside down into the chicane to Tom Layton. Can he do it here this time? No, breaks a little bit earlier. Shallow line, another chance to maybe pull the over-under, but it's not there as he parks it on the apex. Last week's race at Knockhill was certainly a bull ring of a circuit, but today's race will be a punishing one. Oulton Park is notorious for having little to no wiggle room when something goes wrong. Will that leave few able to reach the checkered flag? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 3 of the Absolute Beginners League, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our Semi Award-winning director Ryan Bauer, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Oulton Park probably qualifies as a more club-level circuit here in the UK. Without it making as many international headlines, let's head down to our track guide to get a little more familiar. Welcome to Oulton Park Circuit. This British track to the southeast of Liverpool is a staple in the UK club racing scene, but has also hosted series as high level as Formula 1 a few times. At least with a small asterisk next to those events since they were non-championship rounds. The history and the lore of the venue is as unique as the layout itself. But that layout is more than just the international circuit this place is known for. An incredible 8 different versions can be run, but they all range between 1.5 to 2.5 miles in length. It's not exactly a long lap around here. What it lacks in that realm, it more than makes up for in bumps and hills. On top of that, Oulton Park offers some very fast corners, so you certainly won't get bored. Turns like Island Bend, Knickerbrook, and Druids can be utterly fearsome depending on which chicanes are at it. But even the slower corners often involve blind crests or kinked entries, making passing a very difficult prospect. In modern day, the place is mainly visited by touring cars, GT cars, motorcycles, and Formula 3. But here on iRacing, it's quite popular with the vintage community. Needless to say, this is a track that carries on the British tradition of fast, old-school style circuits that challenge and thrill drivers. It'll no doubt be a blast for both our competitors and fans today. Well, DJ, we just watched the much bigger, faster cousins, the Lotus 79s, race here, but with these skippies taking to this track, it might feel a little more fitting.
Yeah, it will indeed, Joe. They're really going to enjoy driving around this track, although it is still going to present plenty of difficulties for these drivers. Look for some primary overtaking zones going down into Cascades and into Shell Oils, as well as going down into Druids as well. Those are really a couple of the areas. The 2 chicanes here, Britons and Hislops, may look like they're good overtaking zones, but the truth of the matter is there's really only enough room for about 1 car to get through there, even in these super narrow skippy machines. Other than that, drivers going to have to watch out for the elevation changes around here, as these skippies are prone to sort of lifting up off the ground a little bit with all of the suspension travel that they have. It's going to be a very, very tricky lap, and with what looks like 39 drivers, it's going to be a very busy track.
No doubt. It's a little bit of a long lap for them, but certainly it's not one that is long distance-wise, more just time to try and get around. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the championship. And up at the top of it, Philip Hammer has been the man to beat. However, he has arrived late today. We'll see if he can try and do something with very little practice to his hand. David Burns is chasing him, with Simon Mayer not that far behind. A little bit of a distance down to Jeff Randall and Mark Beckhouse, who are in a tight tussle for 4th place. What about the team's championship?
In that team's championship, it's 2 Stupid Dogs leading the way to the tune of about 20 points from Evolve Motorsports. That was an old standings. They're leading even more over Evolve Motorsports to the tune of 38 points. That close battle that we saw earlier starting to keep on playing out, with RT Racing only 2 points behind Evolve. 6 points back is Street Trends Team 1, so they've got a little bit of room to make up, as do Shake and Bake, who are 10 points off in 5th.
As for today's race, it's going to be a decent length there, 50 minutes, and they'll have 2 pit stops to make for fuel. Now, I'm kind of curious with this track having some places where they could lift and coast, whether or not there are going to be some who are going to try to push that, but I doubt we'll see them be able to get to the finish with only a single stop. We'll see. They have a spare car if they do get damaged, which I have to imagine we're going to see a fair few of them need in the end, but hopefully there won't be too many of them that wind up having to come down pit lane in extra time for that. Now, as we get ready to head off to qualifying soon, let's mention our sponsor, the Majors Garage. Make sure and check them out because they're the home of free Baseline Plus setups. Get help from any of the garage coaches 24/7. Sign up now for awesome, affordable monthly subscriptions, telemetry, coaching, and more at majorsgarage.com. Or use our special discount code, MajorsGSRC, for 10% off. We have a link in the description below that'll take you right to the site. As we just see the checkered flag, it was Brunschweiler who was quickest in the warm-up. Simon Mayer was next behind him, but Philip did not get many laps in, if any, in practice. Yeah, he got 1 lap in. I can see that he was able to put down. But I think even bigger than a story for that, DJ, is the fact that they've only got 10 minutes and it's open qualifying to try and set times here.
Yeah, this is going to get very chaotic, to say the least. There's going to be a lot of these little skippies out on track. As we said, we are pushing a 40-car entry here, and getting a clean lap is going to be very difficult. And it's not like in circuits past where we've seen the ABL go to like some of the more Grand Prix style layouts, Hockenheim, Nürburgring, things like that, where you really want to be tucked up behind in the draft of the other car. Right now, around this circuit, you really want as much clean air as possible so as to not be impeded by the car in front of you.
You can see them trying to jockey for position as we were riding on board there. Also trying to get the tires up to temperature quickly. A big key factor in good lap times in this car. And there you see that's a big wiggle there that is intentional, just trying to put some friction onto them. Yes, it might be close to 2 laps to get around, but it is only 2.5 miles around here. So as they come through the chicanes, the first of them getting ready to set times. And in fact, I see, it looks like Johan Vanderbilt, the fan belt's going to be the first one to set one. And then Wojciech Podacek is behind him, kind of riding his tail. They're coming down into Druids. Just Lodge is the last real braking zone. We're on board now with Johan coming into that portion. And here's that elevation change you were talking about, where the world just kind of falls away.
Well, and you see there almost in a full slide as he comes through Lodge Corner, having to put a lot of opposite lock into that car to keep it pointed the straight way. He's very lucky to hold on to it, and that's not going to be the way that he necessarily wants to be running around here. Whoa, that car is all kinds of squirrely, really screaming for mechanical grip out there as Johan.
Yeah, I suspect the tires are still a little bit cold right now, especially considering it's only 70 Fahrenheit on the track currently. So they are certainly dealing with it as another big slide there out of Johan. Yeah, 21 Celsius for a metric, folks. And that was very gentlemanly from the fan belt. He's just going to let Podacek through. He knows that he's ruined his lap, so he just pulls over a bit. And again, these are 2 drivers that are going to be the first to be able to set a time today. So to give you an idea, they crossed the line already roughly 2 minutes in. So look to perhaps about 3, maybe 4 laps if they hustle.
Yeah, it's only going to be that. And as we said, Joe, very, very quick lap times coming around here. Very, very fast lap, despite how long it is as they get going. You've just really got to be on your game the entire way around.
And there's a few places where off tracks can definitely steal that away. It almost makes me wonder if maybe Johan did get an off track there coming through Cascades as we watch him slide off to the right-hand side. Podacek, in the meantime, still going to be the first to set a time. He's behind Anzioso there in the 71. Might be feeling a little bit of that slipstream. Not a whole lot, but you never know. Every little bit could help as he now breaks into Lodge Corner himself, down the hill and through Deerlead. Let's see the number 28, if he's got anything that will help him get a good finish here, as he hasn't had a good one in a bit in this series. Of 51.8 sets the marker, and indeed Vanderbilt did not get to set a time, but David Burns comes around and immediately takes the pole away.
And crucially for David, he's able to be running in clear air. I think that's part of the reason why he was able to get such a fast time. There you can see him just behind. He's got plenty of space to really run the car where he wants to. Doesn't need to worry about any of that little bit of aero wash affecting him through the corners. Yes, these skippies don't generate a whole lot of speed as Brunschweiler goes back up to the top and then immediately off track. That'll scupper him if he wants to try to defend a little bit. Here's Titus de Jong currently in 9th.
Marcel showing his fastest lap in warm-up was not a fluke. So riding with de Jong, he's looking like he's about even with his best lap, as off to the side. That was Brunschweiler actually pulling off to let him through. Actually pulled completely into the grass for him there. Is a bit of a sketchy place to do so. Now he's going to give him the tow as they come up into Britain's, the first of the chicanes.
And you can see there just how tight that chicane sequence is. Those big tire barriers on the inside, we always talk about it every time when we come here. Those are very, very solid. You do not want to be making contact with them at all. Seeing drivers just sort of still jockeying around for position, trying to find the best angle to be able to attack this track, whether that's going to be getting that little bit of a draft or running as clean as possible through the air.
Looking up and down my timing screen, I do see David Burns is about half a second up on his quickest lap, so he could maybe overtake Brunschweiler for that pole position. And he really needs it here because, as we mentioned, we're still waiting on Philip Hammer to get himself a time. So Hammer is going to want to get that going, but David Burns does go faster and is 0.2 quicker than Brunschweiler, who had an off track this lap, so he's going to have to cycle back around to respond.
Yes, he is. This is riding on board with Hammer right here, so we'll have to see what he's able to do. He's got enough clear track in front of him. He's not going to be checked up by anybody necessarily, so that'll be a bit of a relief to him. Coming through Lodge right now, up and over Deer Leap. This time is tracking relatively well. Let's see what it is at the line. Ooh, it's a little bit slow. It's a 51.1. That is good enough for third.
If your slow lap is third, then I'd say you're still pretty quick. So Hammer, with very little practice, has come out swinging. Remco Fleischer, who we ride on board with, usually one of our front runners, both of his first 2 laps got deleted. He is under immense pressure now to try and get a hot one in.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's going along here in that clean air that we talked about. That's the 71 directly ahead of him. Looking down the order to confirm who that is, but he'll get a nice little bit of a hint of an aero draft going down the straightaway, so that'll help him a little bit. But right now, that's Anzioso, by the way. What he's just got to do is focus. It's very easy to run wide around here, very easy to pick up those 1X and still put in a good lap, but obviously if you get that 1X, that's going to invalidate your lap, and that's what's happened to Remco the past 2 times.
Does look like let's see, it looks like about 5 of the top 6 right now are running a faster lap than their prior best. So we could see a lot of improvements in shuffling around at the front of the board. Fleischer has got to get himself in the game as he comes over Deer Leap. Will this one count for him this time? It looks like, yes, it will, a 50.8, and that is actually good enough for pole, 1600ths quicker than Burns.
That is a very, very impressive time there as we now ride on board with the Trident. Frederick Neptune is going to be getting a whole bunch of benefit of the draft here as he works his way along. By the way, Brunschweiler unable to improve. Neptune now, oh, we've had a big kerfluffle coming across the start-finish line there just at a pit exit. That's going to scupper a few drivers' times. Brunschweiler mixed up in that.
Ooh, and he's only in 5th right now. He doesn't have time to get back out and start another lap. That's his qualifying done. That has got to be disappointing as we go to Giros here in the 36. He's working with Neptune, actually, it seems like, swapping back and forth, trying to use what little slipstream there is. But Neptune still doesn't have a time. And Giros, well, neither of them have a time. Oh, well, they've got to get around and make this one count.
Yeah, they do. This will be their last lap as we tick closer and closer to that 1 minute mark on the timing and scoring pylon. Giros, good line there through Shell Oils. Not a lot of counter steer coming out of the corner, using that heavy banking to his advantage.
Looking up and down the order to see if anybody is close to taking a quick one here. And Magruder, who is down in 24th, looks like he might take a couple positions on this one because he's about 0.3 quicker right now. We follow the Scandinavian Giros down through the chicane, his lap chicane. It looks like Magruder's lap unfortunately did not count. David Burns comes across. He goes quicker, and he's now 700ths ahead of Fleischer. Fleischer crosses the line. That one doesn't count. Both of them will get one last opportunity.
About 20 seconds left on the clock. Trying to keep an eye to see who is going to be the driver that will cross the line with enough time to be able to get another lap in. Only 10 seconds to go. This will probably be last lap for Neptune and Gyros there as they work their way through the corner. That's Philip Hammer in the middle. There's the checkered flag out. This is their final flyer.
So JR Hoops just about was the last one, I think, to cross. Gyros does not set a time. Hammer does not improve. He's only 9th. That is going to be a lot of work for him to do. Neptune does not set a time either. So at least those two, and it looks like 3 others, will not be able to start in a representative position. They will be gridded at the back of the field. We continue to watch Burns here as he gets a nice little tow from Vandenbelt. He and Potacek crossed last time. Potacek didn't set a time, but Vandenbelt improved to 3rd.
And Joe, Marcel Brunschweiler unable to improve, so he's going to stay 7th place. The driver who was topping the charts during qualifying. Burns here working his way around in this little pack right now. Directly behind him is Jeff Randall, it looks like, just trying to see if he can get a little bit of the draft.
And Potacek up by about 0.7 of a second I'm seeing on mine, so looking very good. But David Burns improving by nearly half a second, and off goes Vandenbelt. I'm not sure if he intentionally was trying to dive out of the way, but that's his qualifying done. Potacek up in front of Burns gets a 50.4. That is much better, and that puts him up into 2nd. In the meantime, an improvement from Burns puts him about a 10th ahead of Potacek, so it's a good thing he got that one down. Vandenbergen is going to cross the line. Looks like he might improve a 52.2. That is going to jump him up to 25th. It looks like Oliver Wolfgruber will jump to 9th with his 51.1. Now we ride on board with Philip Hammer.
Indeed we do. Hammer making his way through these last couple of corners, seeing if he's got any sort of response. Remember, he is going to come on into the pits, so that's not going to be a lap that counts for him. I can report that Steve Duran, 14th, unable to improve.
And I think that's everybody then, as we saw Neptune go by, so no one is able to set another competitive lap here today. So that sends us through our starting order, and it is shaken up today. David Burns puts it on the pole for some bonus points, as Wojciech Potacek will start from 2nd. Remco Pleijer will be P3, and Johan Vandenbelt is up in the top 5. In fact, the top 2 rows. Giuseppe Tellini starts from 5th. It's Simone Zamolo in P6, and then Jeff Randall in 7th. Marcel Brunschweiler, unfortunately, a little bit of an incident there, coming out of pits late in the qualifying cost, but could have been a good result for him. He'll start from 8th. Oliver Wolfgruber starts P9, and Philip Hammer a shocking 10th today.
Back in 11th, it'll be Simon Mayer, followed by Neil Vammer, with Thorsten Seifert and Steve Durr behind them. Nick Carty will start to the inside of row 8 with Titus de Jong to his outside. JT Company and JR Hoops, they're 17th and 18th. Behind them, it'll be Josh Brain and Italio Anzioso rounds out your top 20.
Andre Solander is 21st. It's Vincent Brain, P22. After that, Benjamin Harris, 23rd. You've got Alexander Wilford to his outside in P24. Gordon Vandenbergen, 25th. Henrik Kemmerer in 26th position. Paolo Anzioso only good enough for 27th today, as Terry Magruder starts from 28th. Next row has Tony Hayes on the inside and Zach Naylor on the outside.
In 31st, it'll be Klaus Loden, and to his outside, it's Nicholas Anderson with Mark Figueres and Vladimir Stedskal in 34th. That's the last driver to set a time. Behind them, it's Rom Adams and Permislav Pierznak in 36. Christopher Gyros, Bartzog Gorzlecki, and Frederick Neptune rounding out your 39-car field.
There are those that are going to be pushing hard, I imagine, to try and get a good result out of this. But the main one is probably David Burns chasing for the championship lead, with Philip Hammer 13 points ahead of him coming into this one. So as we wait for the last of them to grid up, we got about 30 seconds. Standing start here with this many cars. They continue on down past Deerleap, and in fact, let me see how far back they go, because yeah, just about reaching Lodge Corner. So some are going to be starting on an uphill, some are going to be starting on a downhill. There's going to be a variety of situations for our drivers as the engines now rev and the lights come up. The green flag is out, and as they get on the loud pedal, it looks like it is a decent start for Potacek there in second place, but he's immediately going to slot into line as they approach Old Hall. A little bit of a checkup behind him. Looks like everybody manages to avoid contact in there. And watching to see if the back of the field has any sort of issues. I'm not seeing any. We are clean.
Everybody keeping their calm and cool through Old Hall and down the avenue. Coming down now into Cascades, you'll often see drivers running wide there on the first lap, but it looks like through about half the field, everybody's okay. Little bit of a move there. That is going to be Remco Pleisier up around Wojciech Potacek. Now the fan belt, Johan van den Belt trying to get up and around as well.
Potacek had a big hiccup coming through Cascades. He gave up that second position quickly, so he finds himself slotted down into third position. Philip Hammer, current championship leader, still sitting in 10th and actually in a big battle with those around him. So nobody is giving weight to the current championship leader and current reigning champion.
Yeah, indeed. He's currently trying to get around Oliver Wolfgruber right now, but Simon Mayer hassling him a little bit to the backside as well, just keeping up the pressure. Really looks like Philip's off. It looks like Wojciech Potacek has had a problem.
Oh, and there were some behind him that also had an issue. So Potacek not only slipping up coming into Cascades, but he is off in his laps, and he has to wait for the whole field to go by.
Oh, and I think this may be a tow for him. It looked like that he may have lost a wheel there. That's very strange.
Did he clip one of the pylons, I wonder? He may have clipped the second one. That was his front left tire. Let's watch from on board. If he gets a little too close to the inside. And Johan van den Belt just had a spin in real time right now, by the way. Yes, he did indeed clip it too hard and ended his day. Well, hopefully not ended it, but certainly compromised himself. He could take a spare car and get back out. Van den Belt all the way down to 20 seconds. Let's take a look at this replay.
All right, he just completely lost it there. It looks like coming down into Druids. Did he just carry too much speed? Yes, he did. Cold tires, too much speed. That rear end just screaming out for grip. Not able to do it. Good job, though, for Johan to be able to keep that car off of the wall. That'll just cost him positions and not extra time in pit lane.
Wow. Okay, so problems for Van den Belt, problems for Potacek. That means Pleisier's the one to carry the torch, but unfortunately that torch is 2.4 seconds behind Burns, and they're only on lap 2.
Well, Joe, you and I talked about it earlier. This is a track that you either love it or you hate it, and David Burns clearly loves it here, pulling out that big gap.
Burns coming off of home race over in Knockhill, and maybe going to try and follow his podium up with a win here next door as they come through the his lap chicanes. We're riding on board with Zamolo, watching Tellini in front, and Pleisier there in P2, up and over the crest of Clay Hill into Water Tower. Nobody close right now, close enough to attack at least, but Tellini could hope for something down in the lodge.
Yes, he could. He's just going to have to be very, very brave and aggressive on the binders to get it done, but he's got to watch out a little bit. Titus de Jong back in 11th, not willing to let this battle go quietly. He's going to be looking for any table scraps that come his way.
Yeah, a whole train in front of him. Seifert in there, Bamber, who just goes a little bit wide into Lodge. That's going to open the door, and Seifert's going to try and step through wheel to wheel as they approach Old Hall. That's not really a too wide corner typically. We're on board with Philip Hammer now, and it looks like Seifert backed out of it. Hammer's just in front of that fight. He's up to 7th and working on Randall.
And Randall had a big off coming up through Lodge Corner, got off into the grass, was able to gather it back up under him, but it really prevented any sort of attack from behind on Simone Zamolo, and now he is going to find Hammer all of his 6th, and that is going to be very, very difficult to try to attack and defend at the same time.
Indeed, and whoa, well, he doesn't need to do any of that. He just goes on through, and that actually is becoming a big pileup. Looks like Wolfgruber got caught up in it. Oh, well, one thing led to another there, and I think that simply started with Wolfgruber touching the grass and Jeff Randall having nowhere to avoid.
Yeah, Jeff Randall very much a hapless passenger in this battle. We can watch it here. It's Wolf Gruber. He had started to go a little bit sideways before even touching the grass, just carrying a little bit too much power out of the corner. That was Steve Durr that came in at the end of it and got collected and straight on hard into the wall. He's going to have some pretty heavy damage.
Yeah, so many drivers just coming in blind, unfortunately. Big evasive action had to be taken by a number of them. Simon Mayer did a good job avoiding it in that red car as well, just diving to the inside. And here is his view of that one. Sees the smoke. Normally the racing line is on the left-hand side, and he wanted to go over there, but then had to really dodge off to the right-hand side to make sure he didn't become another victim involved in that. So now that means Hammer has been promoted up to P5, but he is 7 seconds behind our leader, Burns. We come over to Zamolo, who is the next one up the road from Hammer.
Yeah, and as a result of that checkup that Hammer had to give, the gap is now about 3.2 seconds between himself and Zamolo, so he's really going to have to hustle to try to get that car back around here and back up into position to be contending for these top fives.
We had, looks like Jeff Randall, I think, was having some connection problems, and it was certainly throwing our time in scoring for a loop. As there was a bunch of cars behind him, though. Not sure what caused that melee in there, but it certainly looked interesting. Unfortunately, we're going to have to come back live and back to Zamolo once again. And this is actually, I think, going to be some critical laps for Hammer, because he's got all that clear air. We're now finally going to get to see what his actual pace could be.
Exactly, Joe. This is the point where he is just going to be able to put the pedal to the metal. He's already taken about 0.2 of a second out of that gap up ahead to Simone Zamolo, so he's clearly got some speed. Zamolo, meanwhile, is in the back of this battle. Now, that is Giuseppe Tellini and Remco Pleisier. This is the battle for the final podium positions here, and we've really seen Tellini be able to put some pressure on Pleisier here and just try to gain it back up to the back of that 117 machine as much as possible.
Let's see if he can elicit a mistake from him as they come down into Lodge. Easy to overshoot this corner in front of them. In fact, that's Klaas Lodin, who is a lapped car, and he is going to stay off the right-hand side. Nicely done. Make sure that he doesn't become involved in this. All three of them squeak through very close into Old Hall as Tellini once again applies immense pressure on the 117, but can't shake a mistake out of him. And there you go. There's our answer. Philip Hammer just took the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, and he took a big chunk of time there out of Simone Zamolo on that last lap to the tune of almost half a second. So he is very quickly closing in there. And that is good news for Hammer. He wants to get in it. We've got a big hornet's nest in the back here, though. Oh, my goodness gracious. I think that's Jeff Randall involved in this. This is nuts. And, oh, that's a car around. That's Johan Vandenvelde.
Oh, another off today. Unfortunately, he gets it back rolling. I'm not sure if he had some help. Let's take a look. He was in a lot of cars there. No, he just went a little too far to the outside, clipped the off track, and that sent him around.
And that is the margin for error around here. Just that little bit you can be off as we jump back to Thorsten Seifert up 4 positions up into the top 10 in 9th right now. He has got, looks like Titus de Jong directly ahead of him, and de Jong trying to close in on Simon Mayer.
Absolutely, and as they come out of his laps, ooh, that was way off into the grass there coming through Knickerbrook. It might not be as fast with the chicane in there, but it certainly can cause problems. They now come into Druids. Ooh, and once again, a little bit wide. Simon Mayer struggling with the track limits. We head back to camera instead behind them, who goes by Gordon Vandenbergen, who I think had an issue. And just as we left Mayer and de Jong went side by side. Look at this craziness behind them on the front stretch. De Jong could be under threat from Seifert down into Old Hall, and no, he is going to stay put.
Yeah, he's going to stay put. And we've got the first couple of our drivers opting to duck down pit lane. It looks like Jeff Randall, Christopher Giros, Gordon Bergen, all peeling off to take their pit entry.
Now, I think some of those that are into the pits are among those that were essentially in amongst that big pack that we kept looking at. Every once in a while, we'd see a huge clump of drivers all battling. I think they want nothing of that. They want some clean air to try and run their own race. We also had an issue for Christopher Giros, who had to take a tow. Looks like he has unfortunately gone out of this race.
Yeah, unfortunate to see him out of it. We check back in on that battle for the podium. Simone Zamolo not really able to close in on his teammates, Giuseppe Tellini, as much as I would have expected him to be able to.
No, not quite for the time being. Last time by for Hammer a 50.3, but it wasn't the fastest lap because he must have had an off track in there. 50.7 for Zamolo, so still gaining each and every lap, and now he's almost pushing Pleasure up into Druids. Doesn't actually make contact, and now they move their way out of Druids on the run under the Warwick Bridge. Here we go. Tellini likes his chances this time. He sticks his nose to the inside. A little bit of early braking maybe from Pleasure. Oh, and he tries to cover off, but unfortunately contact between himself and Zamolo pushes them farther back from Tellini after his overtake. So that separates that battle in a big way.
Yeah, and watch this on board with Zamolo. He sees the opportunity there. I think there that Pleasure would have probably given him the room, but the car got sideways and he had to cross over onto Zamolo's line a little bit just to save the car from spinning, and so that's really what caused that contact.
And it also caused Philip Hammer to close in a big way too. So Seifert, who we ride on board with, is behind them. He's chasing De Jong, the teammate of Pleasure, up ahead, looking to the inside, down into Island Bend, but that's not really a too wide sort of corner. Thankfully backs out of it in time, trying to cover off the inside. Big moment here, and Titus De Jong is starting to feel it as Thorsten is making some very aggressive moves for this spot. That's Klaas Lodin in front of him. That is not for position.
Yeah, you saw that big brake lock up from Klaas Lodin going down into Shell Oil's corner as now they work their way around. Nice other little battle here in the back. We ride on board with Nick Cardy, Vincent Bream, Italio Nicchioso, and Alexander Wilford. Ooh, a little bit of side-by-side here between Anzioso, and I believe that's Vincent Bream.
Vincent got a great run coming out of Britain's. Let's see about into his lops. He's got the inside, he's got the spot, and he's got the job done. That'll give him 15th.
Good heads-up play there, just using the track to your advantage, really trying to push ahead a little bit. Jumping back up in the field, Philip Hammer here. This is the battle for P2. Looks like that Remco Pleasure has been able to keep that gap relatively close between himself and Giuseppe Tellini, but Simone Zamolo falling back a little bit.
And that's bad news for the 58. So Hammer is going to be breathing down his neck as he watches those two fight in front. Pleasure on the recovery to try and get back at Tellini out of Cascades on the way down into Island Bend. Let's see who's got the best run into the Shell Oil corner. Heavy braking zone into there, but sometimes hard to predict who is going to defend and where. None of them decide to leave the racing line.
I'm getting the sense here, Joe, that these drivers are starting to settle down a little bit. The adrenaline of the first couple of laps are down, and they remembered that this is a 50-minute race, and they've got 2 pit stops left to do. And right now, that they're just focused on trying to keep these gaps as small as possible, not do anything crazy, and not make a mistake.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we've got probably about 10 minutes left before they'll be out of fuel here, most likely. 25 minutes seems to be the limit that we've witnessed most cars get to, and even then that's going to be difficult. So most likely within the next 5 minutes for the majority of drivers, unless they've been trying to save fuel. Battle for second place. Tellini, Pleasure, Zamolo, Hammer, and Hammer's definitely joined the fun now. He's got the slipstream of Zamolo. Does he try and take it is the question as they approach the heavy braking down into Lodge. Showed his nose a little bit and then decided against it.
Yeah, I just think he didn't feel totally confident on that move. He wanted to show his nose to see if he could force Simone Zamolo offline. But Zamolo, a very aggressive driver, not going for it. Again, a good run here from Hammer as they make their way into Old Hall. But again, not going for the overtake quite yet.
I wonder if Hammer's already looking at the distance that David Burns has and just trying to play patient here and save some fuel, see how far it can get him, because I would have thought that he'd have the speed, but from what we've seen so far, to try and attack at least, but he's now just sitting and waiting patiently as we get another side-by-side. Once again, Tellini and Pleasure. Pleasure starts to drift out through Island Bend, falls back, decides this is not the right time.
Ooh, and Pleisure got a little bit sideways there in the middle of the corner. I thought for a second Simone Zamolo was going to be able to have a little bit of a look, but Pleisure gets the car gathered up back under him. Now he's going to have a little bit of a run here at Giuseppe Tellini again as he's able to carry some mega speed. Good run off of the corner. He's going to think about the overtake. I don't quite think he has the overspeed to get it done, but he's at least going to try to go alongside.
He's certainly going to have to do it the hard way around, and that's not going to work. This is putting him vulnerable to attack from Zamolo, who manages to get to the inside of Knickerbrook and just squeezes him out.
That was a heads-up play there from Simone Zamolo. Absolutely brilliant stuff.
Hammer says, now's my chance. Thank you very much for opening the door. And he is up into fourth now. So there's one down, two more to go to get to second.
And we anticipate the pit stop should be firing off in about the next 7 minutes or so. Already there goes Hammer up to the inside of Simone Zamolo. Easy as you get there, just moving on through.
Wow, 2 and 1 lap after we saw him wait patiently, and just like that, Pleasure says, okay, I'm pitting in this time. Brunschweiler will join him. Hammer up into third. Hasn't caught up to Tellini yet. Those two little battles that he had certainly checked him up slightly. And in fact, Zamolo is still behind him as we see the cars now in pit lane, trying to take their fuel and be on their way.
Yeah, and it's fuel only for these drivers. We don't anticipate anybody taking tires, as that will really, really elongate the stop. There you see the 117 coming in and out. That is Remco Pleisure. Looks like he's able to stay ahead of Brunschweiler, but that is a very, very good pit stop for Brunschweiler to be able to catch up that close behind.
That's a good point. Yeah, he's got himself within what looks like about a second of Remco for now. So Brunschweiler back out on the circuit. 32 minutes left to go. We're waiting on the top 10 to pit for fuel, along with Harris, Koppinen, Anderson, and Figueres. And we got a ways to wait before the top drivers do get around. Here you can see our battle for second place, with Tellini leading Hammer, and Zamolo are only getting through the Hislop chicane and now up through Clay Hill.
Yeah, and it looks like Zamolo's not in too much of, or Hammer rather, is in too much of a desire to overtake there. He's okay just holding back a little bit. This is the battle, though, between Hammer and Zamolo as they come through. I would imagine they're probably going to come down pit lane here. Let's see about all three of these cars as they make their way through Lodge now. Up and over the hill, you'll see them start drifting to the right if the option is to come in. 1, 2, 3. That's Tellini, Hammer, and Zamolo all in line.
And Burns came in as well. So this looks like the end of where, as far as they can go. There's David Burns down to his very first pit stall since he got the pole position. Taking his fuel. Tellini hits his marks behind him. Zamolo does as well. And somebody out in front of them. Oh, that's Terry McGruther. That's a lapped car. So that's not someone managing to overtake in the pit stops. So David Burns first out naturally. Behind him, Tellini ahead of Hammer, ahead of Zamolo. No change in position for second, third, and fourth.
And looking to see where Remco Pleisure comes out in regards to all of this. He's going to be about 2 seconds behind Simone Zamolo. So a big loser there over the course of those pit stops is Remco Pleisure.
Oh, and off course It looks like Tellini gives up the spot. Hammer inherits second place. A little hiccup out of the pits means the 60 is now gone from qualifying in 10th into P2, and now a 5-second gap to make up if he can run down David Burns. Let's watch on board.
All right, this is Tellini on the run down into Cascades. Could have taken that a little bit farther to the outside, little bit of oversteer there. He's able to catch the car and bring it around, but I think that was really all precipitated by the fact, Joe, that he just was narrow coming in on corner entry, and the rear tires didn't want to give him enough grip to make it around.
Certainly looks like it's been easy to make mistakes out here. We've seen some of the best find themselves facing the wrong way or off of the track at various points. And once again, Hammer is in clear air, just like we saw before. Will he set faster laps than David Burns, especially with a half an hour left to go? There's still time to try and push hard and catch up to his rival.
Well, you don't really have to worry about tire wear in this series. That's just not quite the way that these skippies go. These tires are made to really hold up, so he's not going to have to push that hard. And with track temperature continuing to stay at about 73 degrees Fahrenheit, he's not going to have to worry too much about overheating them as well. So I think he can go in full attack mode here and just try to get in on David Burns the best he can.
Last lap wasn't represented because they just exited the pit, so we'll have to wait until this one. But comparatively, a 2:18.2 for Hammer, a 2:19.8 for Burns. Definitely faster. Some of that was the pit stop. Watching from Pleiser's view now, just up ahead to Tellini. Both of them with critical mistakes so far in this race like that, where they just went a little wide out of Cascades.
Yeah, and I think that was a little bit precipitated by the fact that they were a little bit narrow coming through the interior of the corner, catching a lot of that interior curbing that can really upset the balance in these cars, shift the weight around a little bit more than you would like, and make them slightly less stable. So now we watch to see who is going to risk stopping a little bit early, making it a second short stint, middle stint that is brief. Splash and dash and be on their way. We expect them, if that's the case, based on what we saw in the first stint, about 20 minutes to go. Yeah, that should roughly be the point. We may see some drivers be able to stretch it as late as maybe 15 minutes, maybe 13 minutes or so, but that should be about the very, very end of the window. Some lap traffic getting out of the way there as we check back in on that battle. With Hammer and Zamolo, excuse me, that is the battle between Tellini and Pleiser, with Brunschweiler now right in the back of it and in the thick of it.
Another one that's made things up a little bit, but not to the degree that Hammer has. Marcel qualified 8th place. Hammer has since easily jumped him, but we have to remember that Marcel was his quickest in warm-up. For a brief moment, he held pole in qualifying. And Philip Hammer setting another fastest lap of the race. He is now 4.6 seconds behind David Burns.
Yep, he is definitely closing in over the course of the past 5 minutes since they've come into the pits. He's been able to bring that gap down to the tune of about a second. So Hammer clearly has some speed now that he's able to run in clear air, and he's further been able to build the gap back to Simone Zamolo to about a second. So he's able to breathe a little bit easier from behind.
You see Hammer continuing to push the car as it slides around this British track. 26 minutes left to go, just about at the halfway point of the race. We've only lost Wojciech Podacek, Steve Durr, and Oliver Wolfgruber so far in today's event. You can see just how much they have to flirt with those tire pylons that we showed earlier when it took Wojciech out of this race by just clipping one too hard and too close. As the three of them weave into his lops. No such deal for the three of them this time as they keep from clipping it.
No, they're playing this relatively conservatively here, Joe. Not seeing a lot of major overtaking moves from them, not seeing a lot of aggression. I think in this second stint in the race, everybody just calming down a little bit, not wanting to push too far ahead.
Yep, so cooler heads prevail, and everybody trying to think strategy here. They know there's a race yet to go. It's not over. And strategy still needs to unfold. A little bit of a kick up of dust from Pleisure as he chases on the gearbox of Tellini. May have slowed him up slightly because now Brushweiler is getting ever closer. Almost looked like a tiny little defense from Pleisure just to cover him off and say, don't think about it yet.
For sure, and Mayer there, rather Pleisure trying to see if he can get anything here. Nobody wanting to make that move. Looks like he loses a little bit of time coming through the Cascades gap. Now starting to favor a little bit of Brunschweiler, but again, just so close. Here comes the move.
Pleisure actually gets to the inside. He is going to make it too wide coming through Island Bend. They somehow both hold on to it without Tellini going off the course, but he's got the inside down into the Shell Oil hairpin. Pleisure has to back out, almost makes it so Marcel is able to attack on him, rebuffs that number 4 into the Britain chicane, little wide once again from Tellini.
Tellini looking like he's starting to feel the pressure a little bit, making a couple of minor mistakes there. A little bit of a poke to the outside for Brunschweiler behind. I think that was just a little bit of a premeditated move, trying to see if he could force Pleisure offline at all, but Remco not falling for it, just keeping to run the race that he wants to run.
So will this continue to escalate? Will we see more aggressive moves from Remco to try and see if he can squeak through? Remember, he qualified third. He's 2 positions down. He wants to get those back as we go to Christopher Giros. Speaking of qualifying, that's something Christopher failed to do, and he has gone from 36th to 15th here. Next on his list is Vandenbergen up ahead.
Yeah, he's going to want to close that down. And obviously, there's been some attrition that has helped out that rise for Christopher Giros, but 20 positions not all just made up on qualifying alone. So a very, very good run here for Christopher. Trying to see if he's got anything here on Vandenbergen. Not looking like he's got anything quite yet.
Indeed, so that's going to lead us over to the battle for third once again. Tellini, for fourth rather. Tellini holding off Pleisure, holding off Brunschweiler. And I think Vandenberger just pitted in, and once again we're going to go too wide. Last time it didn't work. Is it going to work a second time? Did he learn anything from the previous one? Marcel thinking about trying to sneak to the inside, comes back to the racing line, actually gets a little bit underneath Remco, but Remco out accelerates him, and no one is going to be able to get an overtake done.
And that right there for Remco Pleisure is using that banking around Shell Oil's corner to your advantage. It's an on-camber corner, and what that means is that if you're a little bit higher up the track, you can carry some good momentum around the outside, get onto the power a little bit easier as you start to apply the power. Instead of that rear end wanting to slide around on you, it'll actually force you down into the track a little bit more. And look at this, Joe. They've caught Zamolo.
Oh, wow. So now it really is a battle for third. Did he have a mistake on this lap? Because that was very sudden. And looking to the inside down into Druids, Tellini wants to try and shake off Pleisure and put a physical barrier between himself and his rival in the form of Zamolo. He starts to drop back. In fact, he has to go defensive. Remco the long way around and taking advantage of that. Marcel Brunschweiler gets through into 5th.
Good move there for Marcel Brunschweiler, and I can report, by the way, that Simone Zamolo had an off coming down through Hislops and into Knickerborough. Just found himself, through Britain's chicane, just found himself on the outside of the track. That's what lost him all of that time.
Well, he's going to be ruining that mistake, no doubt. But will we see any of them try to duck into the pits here? Because next time by, that should hopefully be just within the pit window. Another defensive move. This time, Tellini once again covering off, but on Brunschweiler. And Brunschweiler almost gets shoved off the track. He comes back to the inside, down into Shell Oil, just to make sure Pleisure doesn't get funny.
Exactly. Good way to defend there from Brunschweiler, knowing where he needed to position the car. Looks like he got a slightly better run as they make their way up into Britain's, thinking about attacks here and there, but not truly going for it yet. This is a very calculating drive from Marcel Brunschweiler, and I'm really, really enjoying watching it.
Same here. And Trying to see, I thought I saw another driver come in for their second stop and must have missed it. So we just cross over into the 20 minutes to go in a few seconds now up through Clay Hill. Zamolo would love to be able to shake this group, to be able to get away from the pressure. We hop on board with Brunschweiler, who tries to cut back, and behind him, Pleisure had a little bit of an off. He manages to keep it from spinning. This could be a great opportunity for Marcel. The 4 could have the door open. No, Tolini just covers it off slightly, dissuading him. Will retain fourth rather.
And he's going to hold on to that. I'm getting the sense here, remember, that Tolini and Zamolo are teammates, so there may be a little bit of communication between the two. They know how much speed Marcel Brunschweiler has, and they want to try to defend it as much as they can.
The lead has been steadily moving downwards. You can see it in the top left of your screen, briefly to 3.0 seconds. Hammer a 49.8 last time by. Burns a 50.4. It is really coming down now.
Yeah, it is. You're seeing Hammer really start to attack here and try to bring that down. It's coming down by leaps and bounds here at this point. So we watch Brunschweiler trying to go around the outside of Shell Oils. Not going to work. He's going to lose a bucket load of time.
It was looking so good up until there. But this has been great for Tolini. One less car to worry about, who've been challenging to take away that third position for a good part of the race at this stage. We did get some pitters this time in. Looks like Camera is one of those. He's actually already back out. He's going to return in 24th.
Okay, so that really is for the first one of your pit stop cycle to fire off here. As we said, this should be within the range, about 20 minutes, but we tend to see drivers try to eke this out as long as possible. These skippies like running a little bit on lighter tanks.
That said, when we had traffic as an issue at Knockhill, there was a lot of variety of stops. It's a longer lap here, but we've already seen them get close to catching the cars in the back. In fact, they have caught a few of the cars in the back as we come over to JR Hoops in the middle of the field, chasing Solander along with a whole host of other cars in front of him. I wonder if any of the leaders will try to get tricky, pit a little early when they realize they've come upon some slow traffic, or the rivals have come upon slow traffic.
It may not be the worst idea in the world right now. Your leader, David Burns, just able to get his wide by Terry McGruther, and now Philip Hammer's going to be coming up on him, so he may think about trying to dive on into pit lane for that exact reason.
Watching from Hammer's perspective, and that is not, yeah, that is Burns. You can see up in front of him. That's just McGruther that he went by. So there's two cars. The yellow flash of color that you can see, that is David Burns, who started from pole today.
Started from pole, has just done a really good job of commanding this field. Hammer, on the other hand, didn't have a great qualifying, has had to be on full attack mode for pretty much the entirety of this race. But there you can see your two leaders in shot, and once again, that's Terry McGruther separating them.
A few more drivers in pit lane. Looks like Tony Hayes taking some service. So Philip Hammer has got to try and dispose of this lap traffic quicker than his rival. But the good news for him is he does seem to have better pace here at the middle part of this race, as he's been chipping away at that lead bit by bit. 2.7 seconds right now is the gap between them. This is Brunschweiler back in fifth, still working on Zamolo. He's got a great opportunity here if he desires to take it down into Lodge. And almost contact with Zamolo this time.
Yeah, very nearly coming to blows there. He was just a little hot in, and I think that's a good call from Brunschweiler. Just calm himself down a little bit, head down pit lane, and take that final fuel service.
I agree. Simon Mayer's going to follow him. Monkey see, monkey do. They got a big clump of cars behind them. I wonder if any of them will pit in. This is JR Hoops. Looks like both Bamber and Solander will head in, but Hoops will stay out.
All right, there is that differing pit cycle strategy coming out to play here. We'll have to see if the overcutters here will have a little bit of an advantage. Again, your top two not diving down pit lane yet. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe in the next lap or so we do see Burns decide to come in, as he will be catching up to the 30th place machine of Josh Brain here soon.
And Josh Brain is no stranger to this series either, so he should know kind of how to place himself and where to go. Right up to those tire pylons as Philip Hammer continues to see whether or not he can catch up to David Burns. Looks like our highest driver to have taken their second stop is actually Simon Mayer. Brunschweiler had a long stop, 25 seconds. What happened?
I'm not sure. He may have just miscalculated the fuel a little bit. That is a surprisingly long stop, though, Joe. I mean, I believe that's the longest stop we've seen all day.
I'm looking down, and yeah, the longest regular stop that we've had, for some reason, Marcel just putting in too much fuel. And that means that Mayer's sitting pretty as the highest driver to finish their fuel service for the race. Should be able to go to the end from what we've seen so far. Don't think anybody's going to be that crazy on fuel Tellini pits, and so does Pleisure.
All right, so now we're going to be able to see how that battle shakes out. Pleisure had lost some time to the back of Simone Zamolo, by the way, so I anticipate there being a little bit of a healthy breathing room in between the two if things stay the way that they do coming into pit lane.
And first one out of them going to be Tellini. In fact, Tellini by a wide margin. Now Pleisure gets going. Pleisure a lot longer than Tellini by about 3 seconds. Podacek is a DNF, so he's not a part of that. Vincent Brames just parked in behind them, so on board with Hammer. Down to 1.8 seconds now. The man is persistent. He's not willing to give up on the shot that maybe he can win this race from 10th.
He's certainly going to try to, able to get that gap down under 2 seconds, as you said, pushing along here. Now, here is that 30th place car that we talked about. That's Josh Brain, that your leader is starting to come across here. If Brain gets out of the way, he may keep going. If not, I wouldn't be surprised if we see David Burns opting to come down and into the pits now to avoid that lap traffic.
And David's a smart driver as well. He knows the situation. It looks like he won't have to pit in this time. Josh pulls off to the side, lets the one through, doesn't hinder himself any more than he needs to. And now, I'm assuming, he's going to allow Philip Hammer to try and get by. No, both Hammer and Burns pit in this time.
All right, monkey see, monkey do. I have to imagine that this is then the end of the fuel cycle window, because if I was Philip Hammer, I would have wanted to go on an alternate strategy, maybe stay out a little bit longer than David Burns.
Bit shocked to see them pit in this time, although I guess it is somewhat close to the end of the window. We're still waiting on a few drivers to stop, and it is extremely close now between Burns and Hammer. Hammer about a second faster in his pit stall, and that cuts it down to now 0.4 of a second. Can Burns hold him off for 12 minutes?
That is the crucial question here. We have seen the outright speed out of Philip Hammer, but David Third Degree Burns knows what he is doing and knows how to protect the lead. And this isn't the situation where Burns is, in the lead of the championship and may just let him by. Burns needs to win this race to prevent Hammer from streaking away into the distance.
Yep, it's a very short season here in the Absolute Beginners League. You don't get much time to try and cut down if somebody earns a lead. And this means, from what I'm seeing, yeah, that was the end of our pit window. Everybody has pit in now. I see Mark Figueroa still hasn't, but I think that is a car that is a bit of an anomaly. In the meantime, down into the his lap chicanes. This is what Hammer has been working towards. This is what he's steadily but surely been trying to position himself to take advantage of. Can he overtake David Burns with just a few laps to go to try and steal a shock victory today?
Well, as we've seen out of the likes of Marcel Brunschweiler, catching is one thing and overtaking is an entirely different thing altogether between and when it comes to this Oulton Park circuit. Very, very difficult to get a high percentage move to present itself to you, especially when you're dealing with somebody as talented as David Burns.
Undoubtedly. Watching from the roll hoop of the 60. Across the start-finish line, now down to 10 minutes left to go. Going to be hard to try and calculate it since they crossed at about 150, 149 for our drivers. So I'm not sure if it's going to be 5 or 4 laps for them. A little bit of a slide on the entry into Cascades from Philip Hammer, and there's the first cracks we've seen in some time.
Yeah, he's got to be in full attack mode here, and sometimes that can just get to your head a little bit, but he's able to recover it quite nicely, doesn't lose a whole lot of time. The gap's still about 3/10 of a second in between himself and David Burns. Let's watch him through the corner here, coming out of Shell Oils, carries the car a little bit more. That'll allow him to carry a little bit more momentum.
Ooh, and that might be what he needs. No, coming up into the Britain's chicane. Not going to be able to utilize it. Maybe out of Britain's into his lap. He's got some draft. I don't think it's going to be enough as they hit the binders here soon and slow the cars up. No, does not stick his nose out.
No, I get the sense here he is waiting for the move to be able to make this happen. Needs to just be patient, be cautious, not push too hard here. Just see if he can keep pressure behind Burns and see if there's a crack in that armor.
Through Druids and out the other side. Ooh, this is a pretty decent exit. But like you said, doesn't seem to want to try and throw it away. Knows that he's still got a little bit of a points gap. So might as well play it safe. Does not need to take the risks right now. Up and over Dearly, still no attack attempt. This has all been happening roughly 13 seconds ahead of Giuseppe Tellini, who is down in third. He's almost a full straightaway behind this pair that we see. And amazingly, we still have 28 of our 36 starters on the lead lap.
Yeah, very, very impressed that drivers have been able to keep up the pace across the whole field as we've seen. And in terms of these two guys right here, they've got a good gap up ahead of them before they overtake 30th place. Here comes the move!
Down to the inside, and it's through Island Bend, but that's going to be the outside of Shell Oils. He could sometimes use the banking to complete the pass. David Burns is going to try and fight back. He does so somewhat successfully, but a great run off the corner there for Philip Hammer, and now he has to back out of it offline there for Burns. That's going to make him slow coming off of Britain's as they start to accelerate down into his laps. A nose ahead goes to Hammer, but he's on the outside once again. He covers him off as he's now to the inside. Oh, looked like a little bit of ghost contact between them, but thankfully they're both able to keep it pointed forward, and Hammer has done the unthinkable, going from 10th to 1st.
Absolutely incredible from Philip Hammer to be able to get that move done, just forcing his way on by through Cascades and not backing down from David Burns.
So now that he's ahead of him, can he shake him? Can he start to gap David Burns? Or will Burns make this a race to the finish? I got to think that David is not going to let go if possible. But if he doesn't have the pace, he might not have a choice. It's a big question mark. Philip Hammer has been able to gather him up, so we know that he can run a little bit quicker. But if Burns can hold on to the slipstream, all he needs is a small little slip out of that number 60, and he'll try and charge his way through.
Yeah, just the merest of mistakes, and that is all it will take for Burns to get by. Simone Zamolo behind them pips the fastest lap of the race as he tries to catch down on his teammate Giuseppe Tellini.
In fact, he has caught Giuseppe Tellini, just hasn't passed him yet. That is down to 0.2 of a second, which is about what we see here between P1 and P2. Next time across the line, going to be about 4.5 minutes to go. Maybe actually only 5 minutes to go.
Not going to be a whole lot of time here to make these moves, and with laps under just a minute and a half, it's going to set us up to a very, very thrilling duel to the end. Kudos to Burns here. He is not letting Hammer slip out of his clutches.
Yeah, I think he knows what we know, which is this draft is just ultra critical right now. As long as he can hold on to that, stay within just a couple tenths, then he's not going to be able to lose touch with him, and he can try and just fill his mirrors, see if he can get a mistake, and then dive through as soon as the door opens. Up into Druids now. Door doesn't look open to me, at least at this stage.
No, not quite yet, but it doesn't mean that this is done by any stretch of the imagination. He's going to try to keep pushing here. Remember, it was Hammer that had to make the opportunity for himself going through Cascades. He just needs to see if he can do the same kind of movement here.
So at a minute 50 left and crossing the line with 4:45 to go. We are looking at about 4:40. Yeah, so this is 3 laps left for these two to try and sort this out. We ride on board now with David Burns, a champion in his own right. But now the new boy in town has been coming in and showing him up. Does he try and stand up to him? Is he able to stand up to him?
Well, that's the real question here. If he is able to withstand an attack from David Burns, kicking up a little bit of dirt there on the exit of the corner, pushing his way along, trying to see what he can do. David Burns just keeping that pressure up. This is exactly what he needs to do to try to gain a victory here and gain that first position back.
Braking hard down into the Britain chicane. Ooh, he's getting closer. He's getting that little bit closer. Don't think it's enough coming down to his laps as we watch them plunge down over Hilltop. And nope, he is not going to stick his nose in through there. Now accelerating out of Knickerbrook as well, within almost a car length of the number 60 at times. And up into Druids. Not usually a place that you see many drivers pass. It's possible, it's sketchy, and it's not going to happen this time because Burns stays put in P2. Now is where we more often see drivers try and get a pass done. He's closing in, but he doesn't go for it.
No, doesn't want to take the move quite yet. He just wants to keep that pressure up. Ticking under 3 minutes to go. This should be just about 2 or 3 laps left.
Indeed, looks like 2 laps left to go for our drivers, and Burns just set the fastest lap of the race. If you think he's not motivated, you are dead wrong. A 49.5 that time through.
He does not want to let this win slip out of his clutches. Little bit of a sideways run there for Philip Hammer. Burns will notice that. He'll notice a little bit of a crack in the pressure. Keeps his nose to the outside of Cascades. That's a defensive line there from Hammer. Hammer, I think, is feeling this a lot. Burns doesn't go for the move down into Shell Oils quite yet.
And as they come off of Shell Oils now, I'm starting to get the impression, DJ, that Burns does have something up his sleeve. I don't think he has a lot there. It looks like it's going to be marginal if he makes a move, but he is clinging on to this like he's planning something.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, you saw the speed he was able to carry there through Cascades and down into Shell Oils. I think he's got something in the tank here to be able to go on this. Remember, the other part of this equation is that Hammer had a shorter pit stop. Now, that could affect things if he's not saving fuel. Burns could be just trying to push him a little bit and see if he can get him to run low on fuel. That may be a potential that's going on here.
Ooh, that's a good point. They are running ragged right now, and he's certainly upping the speed. You can see him show his nose into Druids. This is going to be white flag this next time by. Thought he was thinking about it down into Lodge, but it looks like no, he's going to stay on the racing line. That could be a last gasp pass through the final corner. We'll see how that winds up. There's the white flag from Barney as David Burns desperately goes for his first win of the season, but has to get around Philip Hammer to make it happen.
He's going to have to work for this. Let's see if he tries to set him up here. Both of them taking nearly identical lines down through Cascades, now lining up for Island Bend. Remember, that's the area before that Hammer made the mistake. Looks like he's cleaner this time through.
Oh, and Simon Mayer has come into the pits again. I'm not sure what caused that. And must have shorted it on fuel. And that is going to be a disappointment as he was looking at the top 5 potentially there. Out of Island Bend and Shell Oil's corner. That's not the best exit we've seen out of Burns. Hammer just starting to cover himself off by squaring off the corners. And out of Britain's, once again, not as close as we've seen in the past from Burns.
No, not quite there, but he's still going to try to keep up nice behind. He's got a couple more corners that he can make this move. We talked about a last lap maneuver going into Lodge. He's just got to nail this corner coming through Knickerbrook here.
Oh, and he gets a little bit of a mistake out of Philip Hammer, dipping his wheels into the dirt coming out of Knickerbrook. Doesn't look like that was enough. Still, he closes in. If he could get the launch out of Druids, that might do it. Little wide once again from Philip Hammer on the way in. David Burns is within 0.2 of a second here. We ride on board. Does he stick his nose in? He's going to try and send it deep, but no, the door is shut as Philip Hammer is smooth off the corner. He tried as he might, but David Burns still couldn't stop the Hammer from coming down for a 3rd win for the 60.
Oh, Philip Hammer with the aggression and the defense there of the day. We jump back here. Giuseppe Tellini looks like he was finally pipped by Simone Zamolo, and Zamolo will round out your podium.
Poor Pleasure settles for a 5th place outside the podium after starting from 3rd. Looks like we got a battle between Hoops and Seifert here. This is for 8th position.
Indeed, and I was keeping an eye on this before. There were a couple other drivers that were involved in this battle. They were basically, they got into some incidents on the outside of the track and they were off. So it looks like here that JR Hoops is just going to be able to hold on over Mayer.
Just barely. Salander behind him. It takes 12th over Brame. Koppinen and Harris here. This is Harris on the inside we're riding on board with. Looking off to the left to see if Koppinen is going to chop down. No, he does not. He gives him space at the apex, and now it's a drag race up the hill. It's a little veer to the left. That gives the advantage to Koppinen, and he is going to be able to take that 16th spot over Ben Harris in the end. I think that's the last of our battles potentially. Well, Brain is, I think, is he going by a slow Anzioso? Yeah, Anzioso looks like he might be out of fuel here because he is not at speed. Well, now Brain is slowing down as well. Is he able to make it? Nick Anderson is going to get by both of them. This is a bizarre situation as everybody is just a little bit too tight except for Nicholas Anderson, who finds himself snatching 23rd. And to the line behind them, crashing across, Brain is the one that comes across first, it looks like, amongst them. Anzioso, for Italo Anzioso finishing last on the lead lap. We will come back after a little bit of a break. We'll have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Got the inside. Does Leskala send it deep? Yes, he does. He knows he's going to have to force Rolla a little bit wide, but he leaves him space. Rolla gets the inside, coming down to the Sachs curb, but he's timid on the brakes, and almost a Vettel situation there with Yuko Leskala taking it deep, but somehow he holds on, and they carry on this side-by-side battle. Now into the south curve and around, still on the inside. Yuko Leskala will not give way.
Here they come on to the front straightaway towards Nordkurv. Someone's going to have to give here. You can't go through this thing too wide, and Yuko finally gives up the ghost and lets Billy go through. But Billy takes it a little bit too deep. Yusko's got another opportunity towards the entrance of the Parabolica.
This battle will not quit. Down to the Parabolica entry. He's got the inside one more time. Will the throttle pedal make the difference here coming off the corner? It does seem to for Villi Rolla. He briefly has a nose ahead, but now momentum goes back to Yuko Leskala. Leskola. It's the long way around the Parabolica, but it'll be the inside coming down into the Spitzkara. This has been an incredible battle. They've now practically gone a full lap side by side here. Down into the corner and smoking the tires once again. Leskola somehow manages to make that shallow line work. Yep, this is down into turn 2. Really wants to cut into that apex, but there is that gray and blue car there. It carries on as it swings back through turn 3. Muirhead gets a little bit of an edge. Excuse me, Boucher does. But now, as they come to the left-hander, this is not the place he wants to be. He lifts a little bit early. He still carries the speed through, goes a little wide. Is that one going to count, or is he going to be given a slowdown? It counts. And Boucher is going to move into 10th.
We've got a little bit of a pass going on here. Mies trying to make the move down to the inside here as they go into Cunningham. Side by side with Felipe Loyola. And that is going to be Mies with the nose ahead. Tries to give a little bit of an elbows out move, but now the track is going to favor back to Felipe Loyola. Under heavy braking. Who's it going to be?
We got a battle farther up ahead, and this is Karthik Pai side by side Lino Frisha. Lino's going to be able to get ahead of him. He's going to go for another one. He's not just taking one, but he's too hot in the corner, and that goes into the side of the Texan. And in the midst of it all, how about Ove Trangrade getting 3 spots in a single corner?
Oh, but handling it well, did exactly the right thing, came off the throttle, just kept the wheel as straight as he could, ease the car back up on as he comes past the lap traffic here. Scarali, is that Scarali who went off up there? Is he going to get up? It looks like he's going to catch Scarali. Scarali's getting caught up with this lap traffic as Chiquita tries to get around him going through. Oh, nice pass. Mr. Sneaky pulls it off again.
This is what he's been waiting for. Now he definitely has enough speed, but oh, look, he's not even as close as he is. He's not able to use that toe to try and attack, so he's going to go around the outside, trying to break deeper, cutting back underneath, but that's going to give the inside down into the chicane to Tom Layton. Can he do it here this time? No, breaks a little bit earlier. Shallow line, another chance to maybe pull the over-under, but it's not there as he parks it on the apex. Welcome back to Oulton Park. Round 3 in the Absolute Beginners League saw Philip Hammer, despite a lack of practice, despite not that great of a qualifying, come from 10th to take the win, but it was close. 0.2 of a second at the line, with David Burns hassling him all the way to the final corner. Simone Zamola was third behind them after starting from 6th, so a nice climb there for the 58. It was Giuseppe Tellini in P4, followed by Remco Plaisir slipping backwards into 5th. Marcel Brunschweiler, P6 for him, followed by Neil Bamber in 7th, Thorsten Seifert, P8, and Jordan Hoops from 18th to 9th. Simon Mayer, an extra pit stop, unfortunately made only a top 10 for him today.
In 11th, it was Andre Solander, followed by Vincent Bream. Nick Carty was 13th, followed by Alexander Wilfert, with Frederick Neptune and JT Kopanen behind then. Benjamin Harris came home 17th, followed by Gordon Vandenbergen, with Christopher Giros and Tony Hayes.
After that, it was Henrik Camera who finished 21st. Rob Adams up from 35th to 22nd. Didn't get to set a qualifying time. Nicholas Anderson, 23rd today, up from 32nd. Josh Brain, unfortunately, 24th, wrecking across the line as he and 3 others were almost out of fuel. Paolo Anzioso with them in 25th, and Italo Anzioso in at 26th. That was the last cars on the lead lap. Titus de Jong, P27, was followed by Jeff Randall, 28th, Klaas Loden, 29th, and Johan Vandenbelt, a DNF, sadly, today.
The rest of the cars out there on the field: DNFs, Figueres, Magruder, Naylor, Skedskal, Podacek, Dewar, Wolfgruber, Pisniak, and Grzelewski.
It's going to take us to second place, David Burns, who was oh so close today, but not quite close enough. And David, congratulations on another podium. But even after taking the pole, after leading much of the race, it looks like you just didn't have enough speed to keep Philip back.
I knew even where Philip was, and I couldn't even see him in rail, if I was pushing like crazy because I thought he'll catch up in the pits. And then after the first pit stop, I saw the times coming down. I was like, my word, that man is a real alien. He's really fast.
He is, and it certainly gave us an interesting race, to say the least. Talk about that last lap, though. We saw you holding on to him. At one point, you even set the fastest lap in trying to hold on to the tail of that 60 car. Were you going to try a dive? Because it looked like you maybe wanted to on that last corner.
I would have tried if I had have been within a range, but I wasn't within a safe range, and I'm not a dive bomber. I just don't race like that. But I knew from the 3 laps before, when I was getting in his draft, that my lap times were 0.6 faster in his draft. I thought, I really pushed that last lap, and I just couldn't get anywhere to pass him. So he really deserved that win. He really is incredibly fast.
Well, when we head off next week, it's going to be at the Nürburgring Grand Prix course, and obviously this makes it even more difficult to try and run him down. Are you going to do some extra practice heading off to there?
Well, I mean, the Nordschleife, I do like it, but, it's not my best track, so I'll just do what I can. I'll have as much fun as I do, anyway.
Well, the good news is it's the Grand Prix version, not the Nordschleife.
Oh, it's a Grand Prix one. Oh, right. Okay, well, it's still not my best track. It doesn't make any difference.
I'm with you on that. Never seemed to perform well there. Well, commiserations, it wasn't a win. Anybody you want to thank before you go?
You guys, as always, and everybody else that's recently joined. It's nice to see a new influx of members, and my fellow admins as well.
That was David Burns, your second place finisher here today. And I think our next one is going to be Simon Mayer. Seemed to have a late stop. DJ is going to try and unravel that mystery with him.
Yeah, indeed, Simon. I guess to start at the end, it seemed like you came down pit lane near at the end. Was that a fuel issue or what happened?
No, I got too many incident points. And yeah, I got a drive-through penalty. Very unlucky.
Ah, gotcha. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, obviously, you qualified relatively well and were fighting your way up through the field for a large chunk of it. How do you feel today went as a whole?
Pretty good race. Messed up in the pit because I changed the front tires, and yeah, but that happens. But I'm pretty happy with my result.
I mean, getting a drive-through penalty and still maintaining a top 10, I would have to be pretty pleased with that myself, I got to say. But we head to the Nürburgring next, the GP edition. How do you like your chances around there?
I don't know. I never raced there before with the Skippy, but we will see. I will practice a lot.
Well, I wish you all the best in that race, my friend. Anybody you'd like to thank for today's run?
Thanks to my supporters, and yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was Simon Mayer, your 10th place finisher, despite having a drive-through today.
That's kind of impressive, honestly. I kind of wonder what could have been if not. So we'll keep an eye on Simon. In the meantime, looks like that will wrap us up. So we will once again give a thank you to our sponsor, the Majors Garage. Check out their website at majorsgarage.com. We got a link in the description below that'll take you right there, and use our promo code MajorsGSRC to get 10% off. Also, thanks to the Absolute Beginners League for bringing us back for another season of coverage, and thank you to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts that you see listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen, proud to get a hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, DJ, Ryan, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media. Also, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenvy.com. There's a link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. The next race, as we mentioned, will be the Nürburgring Grand Prix version, and that'll be Sunday, February 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern in 2 weeks. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar, including later this evening, the American Majors now have their Daytona 500 coming up as the European race has just wrapped up. That'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern, so until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.